Here's Bijan Robinson, touchdown Atlanta. Intercepted A.J. Terrell. Touchdown Atlanta. Drake London. Mike at the 5. Looks Mike touchdown. Oh my goodness. Welcome to the game, Cadero. Oh, Darnell Mooney inside the 10. Oh, and it's intercepted. Caden Ellis the pick. Stroud it out, Jesse. Touchdown Atlanta. No chance. Oh my gosh. Oh my heavens.
Well, the Falcons had a statement win last week over the Bills in Week 6. Now they travel across the country to take on their oldest rival in the NFC and the San Fransisco 49ers. It's Sunday Night Football, and we're back at Ticketmaster Studios. Thank you guys for joining us for the Falcons pregame show presented by Ticketmaster. Taylor Vismor, and Rack is back. He's back with me across the table from me. Obviously, thank you, Will, for filling in for him last week.
Thank you, Will.
For the Bills. But you were on the call last week,
yeah.
And what a game it was to call, right?
It was, absolutely. It was great. I mean, listen, NFL is such a great product. It's like any game, specifically primetime games.
Yeah.
Like, you can always find such an intriguing storyline. You just never know in the National Football League, pull up the scores, who is going to win any given matchup, right? You look at some of the teams that you didn't expect to have great seasons, and all of a sudden they're turning around. I mean, that's what's glorious about this sport, about the National Football League. But yes, I was on the call, but I'm happy to be back in studio.
Well, glad that you're here with us. You bring up that every week there's always really great storylines, and it seems like for this Falcons offense, the storyline that keeps popping up is Bijan Robinson. I mean, this guy's having maybe a career year. He's had a career year really every year since he's become an NFL player. Obviously, now he is on pace to reach 2,700 plus scrimmage yards this season, which would place him above greats like Chris Johnson and, of course, Adrian Peterson. When you hear those names, I mean, it's just incredible what he's been able to do so far in just 3 seasons.
Yeah, I mean, it is, but it's like every time I watch him, like those names don't seem out of the reach at all because of what he's able to do each and every week on the field. It's just special. Like he is a next level player for all the things. I had some conversations over the last week or two with some people, and they're asking me about Bijan Robinson. Well, what does he do good? And I said, honestly, I've yet to find something that he doesn't do well.
Yeah.
Right? Like he is turned into the total package, right? For what he can do on the football field. Obviously, he can run it. He's got the speed. He's got the cutting ability, which everybody has found out. He's got the lower body strength to break tackles. He can catch the ball to the backfield, almost looks seamless like a wide receiver. He can protect and pass protection. I literally have not found anything that he doesn't do extremely well. I mean, maybe if you broke it down, you could say, yeah, he could be a better pass protector.
Maybe.
Is that why you draft a guy in the first round, is to be a pass protector? Probably not. You want an electric playmaker on offense, and he checks all the boxes.
Yeah, well, he might check all the boxes for you, but Raheem Morris thinks that he is the best player in the NFL. He's doubled down. He's tripled down. I mean, he is standing on that ground of Bijan Robinson is the best player in football. And look, he's kind of put the NFL on notice since he's gotten here with his ability to make defenders miss. And people have said it's really an art. It's really the art of the juke.
I knew that God gave me a gift to juke people out and to do all my moves that I do. Like just how I see it is, you know, when I react, I really play off reaction. So I'm a big reactive guy. Like I don't set anything up. I don't wait for defenders to, you know, come in my vision. It just goes all off of reaction. First started playing tackle football at 7 years old. I played flag football for like a year, and you know, it wasn't really juking. It was more just me like running straight, just using my speed, blowing past kids. But then first play, they were like, all right, let's see what he got. There was 2 defenders that like came just like right across the middle, and I saw them immediately, and they just came in my square, and I just like juked them out both at the same time. Everybody was like going crazy. Everybody was like, what? Like all the kids were like, no way. After practice he came and he was like, B, I've never seen that move from a kid before. We're gonna play you at running back.
Bijan Robinson, The Art of the Juke, is now available on Falcons YouTube and website. Go watch that feature. It's great. Shout out to Jenny Ross for the edit. And then obviously Tori McElhaney wrote a piece on it, kind of going into the sports science of how he makes the juke work and why, and how he's kind of the build of Bijan and how he's able to do so. And as we kind of said earlier, he's becoming a name that could be talked about with those greats. So I thought it would be fun before we kind of recap the Bills really fast. Who are the greats? You know, I don't know if you watched many podcasts like I do, but I watch a lot. And it's become a trend to do a Mount Rushmore of whatever it might be. So let's do the Mount Rushmore of running backs. You can start or I can start, doesn't matter.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Yeah, why don't you start?
All right, I'll start. Fine. Twist my arm. All right, so obviously I'm going to start with LT.
Okay.
Obviously, legend in the game. And then Adrian Peterson, I mentioned him earlier. Bijan Robinson's on track to have that 2,700 yards from scrimmage to replace Adrian Peterson in that as well. Emmitt Smith, I don't think you can talk about running backs without Emmitt Smith in it, right? You can't talk about the Cowboys and their franchise without Emmitt Smith. You can't talk about Troy Aikman and those other guys on that team. And then I'll bring someone in that's in the fold, that's on an active roster, Saquon Barkley. I could kind of talk about him for a while. I think that he should have won the MVP last year. He should have been a bigger name in the MVP race last year. I think you can kind of plug and play him on any team, and they're going to become a Super Bowl contender or a playoff conversation of a team, whether it was with the Giants or obviously last year with the Eagles. Obviously, they won a Super Bowl. I think he should have been more in that conversation. Not that Josh Allen doesn't deserve the MVP, but Saquon should have been a little bit more.
That's not what you're saying. That's not
I'm
what you're
not saying that he doesn't deserve it. I'm just saying that I think Saquon deserved it as well. You know, I think he is the most valuable player.
He is a fantastic player, and we obviously got a chance to hear him quoting Bijan Robinson and saying himself that nobody cuts like him. And so it's like when game respects game. So I think you got great numbers, great selections, for your Mount Rushmore. There's so many running backs that you could pick if we're talking about the history of the game. And I think this is fun to do this Mount Rushmore, but you also have to kind of temper it to say that Bijan Robinson is his third season in the National Football League, so he's got a ways to go. Okay, but if I'm going to follow up on that, I want to make sure I understand or I let you all know that I had a couple of, call it prerequisites, if you will. And for me, it was guys that I actually had a chance to see. So I'm not going to go back to like the Jim Browns of the world because I didn't have a chance to watch him play. But I also wanted to make sure that I put out guys that I felt like were similar in style, right? What makes Bijan so special is how elusive he is and his ability to catch out of the backfield. So those are a couple of the prerequisites into my 4 Mount Rushmore. And in my opinion, you cannot talk about a Mount Rushmore without talking about Barry Sanders. To me, if you want to talk about the elusive running back, maybe the most elusive running back of all time, it starts and it stops, for now, Bijan Robinson, with Barry Sanders. His ability to make people miss, his shake ability was unheard of, right? And you look at some of his numbers, 10 straight seasons, all of them over 1,100 yards rushing, 9 over 1,300 yards rushing, and 5 of them over 1,500 yards rushing. The man was truly special. My next one is Marshall Faulk. I got a chance to play against him. Fortunately, I didn't play on defense because he would have made me look silly, much like Bijan Robinson does. 5 seasons with 80-plus receptions. You want to talk about a guy that had the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield, kind of set the standard on how a running back turns into a wide receiver, the greatest show on turf, obviously. 12 years in the National Football League. He won an MVP, 2-time Offensive Player of the Year, and of course, he's in the Hall of Fame. Number 3, I'm with you, LaDainian Tomlinson. Same type of scenario here. 8 straight seasons to start his career, okay, over 1,100 yards rushing. He was fantastic when he came into the league. 9 straight seasons of double-digit rushing touchdowns. Think about that. 10 or more, 9 straight seasons to start his career was just fantastic. And then I'm going to tie this back into our game right now because I'm going to say that Bijan Robinson is much like Christian McCaffrey. He is in that conversation as well from what he's been able to do as a running back, but also showing how difference maker he can be catching the ball out of the backfield. 2 seasons with over 100 catches. Okay, and Christian McCaffrey already 46 receptions this year through 6 games. So those to me were guys that were elusive, that did it over the test of time, but also that great receiver out of the backfield, which is what we're seeing from Robinson.
Exactly. We'll talk about Christian McCaffrey a little bit later in this show, but something to note about Robinson and McCaffrey is they actually trained together this offseason. I've heard it was for about a month. They were together out in California, learning from each other, trying to emulate each other in a way. So it's going to be interesting to see how the two run from the back, from out of the backfield tonight with their respective teams. But before we get to tonight, kind of staying with the Bijan Robinson of it all, let's talk about this Falcons offense last week on Monday Night Football, because I thought, everyone kind of felt like this was a solidifying win, that now everyone knows that the Falcons are here and they are a playoff team and they're a force to be reckoned with. And while I agree on all those things, I also feel like that win on Monday night was more of a building block because of the offense, right? They had a really great first half. They didn't have the greatest second half. They just kind of stayed afloat throughout the second half, and I can read those stats a little bit later. But throughout the offense, it was really the Michael Penix, Bijan Robinson, and Drake London. Joe, what did you take away from the offense last week?
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think those three players, they had fantastic games. And those are the things that you want. When you think about this as first-round draft picks and them producing, right? And you could throw Kyle Pitts into the conversation as well. But these are first-round draft picks for the Atlanta Falcons that had huge games in a huge moment against the reigning MVP. And that's what you want when you make the investments in these type of players, is you want to see them continue to mature in your uniform, but then show up in the biggest moments. And that's exactly what they did offensively. Think about the first drive, 5 plays, 69 yards, 2 minutes and 45 seconds off the clock. Boom, they go right down the field in a national spotlight, put a touchdown on the board. Like, that's the fast start that you're looking for offensively when you take the football. But then outside of that, think about what they did. 5 of 12 on third down. So they were able to convert. They were able to string drives together, which I actually thought was one of the keys to the game, is keep Josh Allen on the sidelines. Like, limit the amount of times that he can touch the football. They were able to do that. Won the turnover margin 2-0. How about protecting the football? You can win a lot of football games when you don't turn it over on offense and when you get takeaways on defense. 210 rushing yards as well. And how about the balance? 32 rushes, 32 passes in the game. They were able to keep this Buffalo Bills defense on their heels, not sure what they were going to do, and Michael Penix continued to just take advantage of what the defense was giving him, whether it was a check down, whether it was taking a shot downfield. Yeah,
to kind of bring up those stats I was bringing up earlier, in the first half they had over 300 total yards, 168 rushing yards, and 167 receiving yards. They had 21 points in the first half, but then in the second half it was a totally different story. They had 82 rushing yards and 83 receiving yards, and they only had 3 points on the board. The defense is what really kept them afloat. The defense on Monday, they blitzed Josh Allen 55.9% of his dropbacks, which is the highest blitz rate Josh Allen has seen. What did you take away from the defense being able to play all 4 quarters and really keep this Falcons team in it all game long?
Yeah, it was a great game plan, I thought, because you got to put pressure on the quarterback, right? Like, make Josh Allen think about things quicker, right? Get the ball out of his hands quicker, make quicker decisions to get out, which that's actually what he does the best, right? Is his ability to extend plays, keep his eyes downfield, but then when he sees a big gap open up, he's going to tuck it down and run with it because of his size mismatch against so many of the defensive players. But Jeff Ulbrich stayed true to what he wanted to do, continued to bring pressure, disguise the look. So sometimes there was pressure with people dropping out and they could be in a zone, right? But to me, that was how you end up attacking the Buffalo Bills. And Atlanta put it out there to say, if you're going to slow down Josh Allen, this might be one of the ways to do it. Now, sometimes it's a gamble, Taylor, because you're a lot of times going to put yourself in man coverage behind him, right? Which, if you don't get to the quarterback, then you're going to end up finding man-to-man coverage, and that's when guys get open, right? But think about what they were able to do defensively, okay? They gave up a touchdown on the opening drive of the game to Buffalo. They gave a touchdown the first drive of the third quarter, okay? Outside of that, the other drives Buffalo had offensively was 6 punts, 2 interceptions, and 1 turnover on downs. That is fantastic defense right there. There wasn't a field goal in there. There wasn't another touchdown that was in there. Outside of the first drive in the first half, the first drive in the second half, it was all defense shutting him down. And what else did we see? The frustration from Josh Allen. How many times did he go to the sidelines and he threw his helmet down, he put his hat on, it almost like he wanted to go fuss somebody out, but he didn't because he's a great teammate. But that was the frustration that they caused for him.
Yeah, defense kept Josh Allen under 200 yards last week, and it was his 9th time in his NFL career that he's had back-to-back losses. I mean, frankly stated, Josh Allen does not lose back-to-back, and the fact that Jeff Ulbrich electric, and this defense was able to continuously pressure him, continuously get him on his heels, continuously put them in third and long situations and get them off the field quickly. Really helped. I mean, obviously now the defense for this Atlanta Falcons team, they're number 1 in the NFL, and the Falcons offense is number 2 in the NFL respectively. So kind of going on that, I mean, obviously with the enormous win with the Bills, if that's what we want to call it, everyone in the media is like, wow, the Falcons, they're a team. Wow, we kind of forgot about the Falcons. Here they are. And people have been saying there's a vibe in the building. You can tell on the field when they're playing to all their keys. When you have a number 1 overall defense and a number 2 overall offense, there's got to be a specific vibe that's happening in the building. And I can attest to it because I am in the building every day. There is a vibe, and it's this vibe of we are here to win. We know that we have playmakers at really every single position on both sides of the ball, even on special teams, on all 3 faces of the ball. We've got premier players at these positions, and if we can all work together and do our jobs while helping the other person across from us, we can be a major force to be reckoned with in the NFL.
Taylor, I don't know if there's any statistics out there. I don't know what the number is as far as how much of this game is mental versus physical, okay? We all know that the game of NFL, the game of football, is specifically in the National Football League because everybody is fantastic. Yes, it is a very physical game, okay? If you're not big, if you're not strong, if you're not fast, if you're not quick, if you don't have elite talent, you will not succeed. However, all 32 teams in the National Football League have that in some way, shape, or form. But it gets back to the mental side. And again, that's what I'm talking about, whether it's 10%, whether it's, well, I should say more like 90% or 93 or 95 or 99. I don't know what the number is, but it's mental. And what I mean by that is your belief on whether or not you can win every single game that you play.
Yeah.
And not only that, it's the confidence that you have in your teammates. How much trust do you have in your teammates that they're going to go out and they're going to be where you want them to be on every single play, that they're going to make the plays that they're supposed to. But it's going into every matchup saying, we can compete with this team. We can win against this team. All we got to do is go play our game. Instead of thinking about what's going to happen with Josh Allen or what's going to happen with Baker Mayfield or what's going to happen with Jaden Daniels. I know he didn't play that game, but when you start thinking about other players on the team and what they might do to beat you, like you've kind of already almost beat, right? You're thinking about somebody else and not how you're going to execute. And I think that's what we've seen the past 2 wins for Atlanta is the belief against the Commanders, the belief against Buffalo that they can go in and beat those teams, and they did.
Yeah, I got to sit down with Drake London earlier in the week, and we kind of recapped the game from last week, and then we kind of start to look forward at the week ahead of us. So obviously, looking back at Buffalo, looking towards San Fransisco, excuse me, and I asked him about how do you kind of let this win go, and by not riding the high and just focusing on the win, but how do you turn the page and how do you look forward to an NFC matchup in San Francisco 49ers? And he said, well, you look to your left and you look to your right and you say, that was great, but we got to do it all again. We have to continue to prove every single week that we are a team and we are a force to be reckoned with in the NFL. And it seems like Drake, I mean, he's becoming a leader in the locker room. And he believes it. And if you have a guy like him or like Kyle Pitts, who I spoke to a couple weeks ago, said around the same thing, if you have these leaders who have been part of these offenses for a long time here in Atlanta, believing in that week in and week out with these major matchups on primetime, I mean, it's going to be a fun night to watch them play tonight in Santa Clara.
Yeah, Drake's a wide receiver, and he doesn't touch the football every play. He might touch the football, let's call it 6 times, maybe 10 times a game if it's a really good game for him. But I do think that because he is so infectious in the way that he plays, he can be one of those guys that kind of everybody else feeds off of him, right? It could just be a devastating block for Bijan Robinson when he gets outside and gets out on the perimeter, right? It could be that block that springs him. So there's so many different areas that Drake London can be a difference maker. Bijan Robinson, Michael Penix, I know he's a little bit more quiet, but what he's been able to do and the element that he brings, it's like this team now is showing up to every game and saying, we got weapons that we can compete. And it's like, it's not so much about everybody else. It's like, how are they going to stop the guys that we've got?
Yes.
Like, how are you going to slow down Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, and Michael Penix? How are you going to slow down all 4 of those guys with the offensive line in front of them that's been put together and groomed and played together, the amount of games that they have? So that's what other teams have to start thinking about. But it's consistency, right? Like, how many times can Atlanta stack these positive performances together? I'm not saying that they've got to go out and beat every team by 20 or 30 points. This is the National Football League. That's not reality. But it's consistent play, meaning pass rush shows up, You win at the line of scrimmage. You don't turn the football over. You catch the balls that you're supposed to. Those are the things that you're looking for week in and week out. Can we control what we can control? And I think that's what a lot of people just want to see from Atlanta every single week.
Yeah, you bring up that some teams and defenses specifically are now thinking, okay, how do we stop Atlanta? And they've got a tall task tonight in San Francisco because they had 19 players on the injury report this week. 19, I think Taryn Walk, who's on our editorial team, she said it's a third of the 50-man roster on the injury report. Obviously, both quarterbacks in Mac Jones and Brock Purdy were on the inactives report, but we're talking about defense. Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, major names, not just for San Francisco, but in the NFL, major names in the NFL. They will not be active tonight. They will not be playing. Both of those guys will be out for the season. How does the NFL, how does the Atlanta Falcons, how do they capitalize on these players not being able to play tonight on the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, you talked about Nick Bosa. He was hurt earlier in the year, so that's not really a surprise to this point about not being in the lineup. However, when you don't have one of the league's, call it over the last 5 or 6 years, more feared pass rushers in the game, it is a little bit of sigh of relief for an offense, right? It's one less truly dynamic pass rusher that you have to worry about slowing down, okay? But I think Fred Warner is the bigger discussion here because he is hands down the leader of that defense. Not only that, but he was also the leading tackler as well. So his production matches his leadership as well. So they're not going to have him because of the injury that he ended up going down with, had surgery this week. He's going to be out likely for the rest of the season. Okay, so what does it look like outside of Fred Warner? Well, they're going to have a younger player in Tatum Bethune that's likely going to step up and take his place. Well, what do we know about Tatum Bethune? We know that Robert Saleh, the defensive coordinator, is extremely excited about what he can bring to the table, that he plays with a ton of confidence, that he knows the defense, that he's ready for this moment. He even said back in OTAs, Fred Warner wasn't even participating, and so Tatum Bethune got a lot of the reps with the ones at that time. It's all fine and dandy, but this is now the actual game, right? And so he said one of the things that he's just going to need is reps, right? Well, the problem is it might be till week 13 to where he truly gets comfortable, right?
Yeah.
So why do I bring up a specific linebacker that's filling in for Fred Warner, right? Well, I think it goes back to Zach Robinson. And now how do you find ways to scheme to where you can get him lined up with Kyle Pitts, where you can get him man-to-man with Bijan Robinson coming out of the backfield. And then you can truly see where his confidence level is at, where he is trying to slow down one of the most dynamic playmakers in the National Football League. That's how, from a coaching staff perspective, from a scheme standpoint, how you take advantage of one really good player not being in the lineup.
Yeah, you bring up Kyle Pitts, but also how about the matchup with him and Charlie Warner? I mean, if you match him up with Charlie Warner, then you've got Kyle Pitts in the field, you got Bijan Robinson. All these guys are able to be pass catchers in those plays that Charlie Warner can kind of lock down that linebacker. But something else to note for this Falcons offense, Darnell Mooney will be active today. He was active last week against the Buffalo Bills. This is a bigger get back for the Falcons offense because obviously we mentioned it briefly for the Bills game. It was really the Michael Penix, Bijan Robinson, and Drake London show. And while that was great for them and their numbers and their statistics, I don't know that it's very, you can't really lay on that for 12 more weeks in the National Football League. People will figure it out pretty quickly. So how does Darnell Mooney coming back, obviously as the player that he is, but how does he help the offense as a whole with having more options on the field?
Well, it's a guy that you feel comfortable with. You know that he can win man-to-man matchups. He brings some downfield threat to your offense. But I think it's a great point because as good as we talk about that Bills matchup from Monday night, think about this. There was 20 pass completions in that game for Atlanta. 19 of them, 19 went to London, Robinson, and Pitts, okay? So then you just think about, well, what if Robert Saleh, really savvy defensive coordinator, puts together a game plan and he says, you know what, I don't really care what else happens, but Drake London is not going to beat us. Or Bijan Robinson coming out of the backfield is not going to beat us, right? And so maybe he does double teams all the time. Whatever it is, whatever his game plan is, you've got to be able to counter with different personnel if they take away a part of your game. So if there was one thing that I would say coming out of the Buffalo game is you got to have more people step up, right? And so maybe it is Darnell Mooney. Maybe he's now back up to speed. Maybe he's got his little bit more health back, and maybe he's got the confidence back to where we can see Darnell Mooney from 2024. Because outside of that, it was going to be a Casey Washington, a David Sills. How are we going to be able to combat if they take away Drake, if they take away Robinson in the passing game coming out of the backfield? Because that very well could happen. right? So maybe this is the perfect time for Mooney to get back in the lineup.
Yeah, I know that Drake has become this national name for wide receivers in a way for the Falcons, and obviously he's so good at getting those contested catches, the 50-50 balls. He's going to get out there and he's going to do it. And watching and knowing Drake, he's a different person on the field. It's almost like I don't know who you are, and you kind of scare
Flips
me.
that switch.
Yes, like you're a little scary. But something that Mooney can do really well that helps Drake in his game as well is Mooney can stretch the field. He can flip the field quickly because of his speed, and so having him back out on the field tonight is going to be really helpful for Michael Penix and the rest of this offense. Obviously, you bring up other guys that are probably going to have to step up in if they decide to go with 3 wide receivers, with Kyle Pitts just being the singular tight end. And if they do, it's going to be guys like Kaderil Hodge or Casey Washington or even David Sills. And Zach Robinson spoke about other wide receivers in this room who are going to have to step up throughout the season.
Yeah, I think we need to continue to get solid play out of the whole group. Hoping to get Mooney back at some point here soon. But the guys have stepped in. I thought David Sills did a great job last week. I know he ended up not getting an opportunity with the football, but blocking away from the ball, he did a great job. Assignment sound. Ty's first touchdown run, he's blocking in the end zone and ultimately leads us to score as opposed to the ball being down at the 2 or 3 yard line. So all those little details showed up for Sills last week, and Casey's a guy that continues to progress. No, he didn't get a ton of ops either last week, but looking for those guys to just keep building, knowing that there's going to be a game where hey, Drake's taken away, KP's taken away, B, who's that next guy that can step up? And we feel good with all those guys and just look forward to seeing them kind of progress throughout the season.
All right, so Zach Robinson's kind of on the same wavelength with us. If you only have 3 players that can catch the ball, they're going to take away those 3 players quickly, so going to need to have some other wide receivers step up in that room. We'll see what happens tonight with the wide receiver room, but something with the wide receivers and being able to flip the field, you got to give them time, and you got to give your quarterback a good pocket. And last week there was a big question mark over this offensive line because Jake Matthews left the game before the half and he did not return. And all throughout the week he was questionable for this game. He is good to go. So he will keep his consecutive starting record. He will hit 185 consecutive starts tonight. Obviously the Falcons were able to maintain their win against the Bills once Jake left, but having him back, what does that mean for this offensive line and the offense as a whole?
Yeah, it's consistency up front, which is so huge, right? Just knowing how each of these guys plays off of each other, knowing their communication with each other, and then just knowing that if he gets a one-on-one matchup, he's got a pretty darn good chance of winning it. It was one of those things where I came out saying from Buffalo into San Francisco, to me, was actually the biggest question mark. And because I understand the importance of the success up front, not only to the running game with these 2 dynamic backs that Atlanta has, but to the passing game with Michael Penix and being able to pick apart a defense is consistency on the offensive line. But you start to think about it, this dude is such an Iron Man, right? Like, he's got this ankle injury, and you hear from Raheem, and you kind of try to read through some of his comments, and it's like, you know what, this guy's going to play. Like, he's going to go out there and he's going to play. I don't know how many rolls of tape he's going to have on this ankle, but that's what you want, because not only is that something that you can count on, but like the guys are going to feed off of him.
Yeah.
Like, this guy is not going to let an ankle injury affect how the rest of our season's going to go, how his play is going to go. This streak means so much to him, and not just because it's a number, but because it means he's out there for his teammates, and he's competing for this organization, and it means a ton. So to somebody that spent so much time in offensive meetings and offensive line meetings when I was playing tight end for the Atlanta Falcons, knowing the importance of having just a stud up front and his want to be on the field with his teammates, to me, is impressive.
Yeah, it's always fun to watch these guys go to work as an offensive line, and this unit specifically, because they've played so many snaps together. Going into Buffalo, they were the only unit to play 100% of the offensive snaps together. Obviously that changed when he left the game in the second quarter. But something about Jake Matthews, Will McFadden said it, I think earlier in the week, and he's like, I have watched this Falcons team for as long as I can remember. I've watched them growing up. It's hard to remember a time when Jake Matthews was not on the team. Like, he's been here for a long time. It's like his 12th or 13th season. I can't remember which one it is, but I think it should be 13th. I think he's a year behind Kirk. But he's from Texas. He's a rub the dirt in it kind of guy. So kind of coming into this game, I had the same thought of, like, I will be really shocked, and almost I'll be more worried if he doesn't play. That
Right.
to me, that says something more about he's more injured than they led us on to believe. And for him to be able to play tonight and hopefully play all 4 quarters is going to be huge for this team, especially still having a green quarterback in Michael Penix. I know that he's done really well the last couple of games, but when you've got someone on as your left tackle and he's played 185 games, I can pretty much count on that he's going to be there for me, and I can count on him too.
Makes the quarterback feel a lot more comfortable
better.
and breathe a little bit easier.
Yes, and something to remember too, he and Chris Lindstrom both, they're team captains. So having a captain leave the team as well and not be able to play, it puts a damper on things, even though Chris is part of that offensive line too. But let's kind of transition now and talk about, speaking of quarterbacks and having a good offensive line, let's talk about the quarterback position for the San Francisco 49ers. Obviously, Brock Purdy was coming into this season the bona fide starter for the San Francisco 49ers team. He ended up getting hurt. And now Mac Jones, who's kind of been a journeyman as of recently in the NFL, he has gotten 4 starts. He'll make his 5th tonight with the 49ers, and he's kind of made a new name for himself in the NFL. He's played really well under the San Francisco 49ers offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kyle Shanahan's probably really pleased with the way that his backup quarterback has come in and kept them competitive so far. I mean, you look at Mac Jones, you got to remember that he was a former 15th overall pick, right? So this is not a guy that was like a 6th rounder that's just been bouncing around the league. Like, he was a 15th overall pick, and he did some pretty fantastic things when he was in college. But I mean, what he's been able to do, and think about what they have done with him. I went back and I looked at the numbers, Taylor. He's averaged 42 pass attempts a game when he's been in there. So this has not been Kyle Shanahan saying, we're going to game manage until Brock Purdy gets back. Kyle Shanahan doesn't operate that way.
Yeah.
And if that's the best way that our team has a chance to win is by throwing the football, that's what they're going to do. 6 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Did have a couple of them last week, of course, against Tampa. Had 6 sacks as well. That's the one thing. Even though he's shown a little bit of ability to keep plays alive, he has been sacked a lot, and which is an area where Atlanta has improved this year, is getting after the quarterback. So still going to be very important for them to get after Mac Jones. We didn't really talk about it, but George Kittle does come back. With all the injuries that San Francisco has had, they are going to get their dynamic Pro Bowl tight end back in the lineup, which is going to be huge for them. They're going to feel a boost there because they haven't really had any dynamic receiving threats that have been healthy the last couple of weeks, but they will get George Kittle back. So Mac Jones has got another target out there. I think he's been doing a very admirable job kind of keeping them competitive. Ability to put points on the board, ability to put the ball through the air, even with this cast of characters that he's got throwing to.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting week because he and Brock were both on the injury report coming into this game, and it's like, well, they both can't be out. I mean, maybe if they have an emergency third quarterback, I don't know who that would even be, but that was a big question mark coming into this game. Who will start? Will it be Brock? Will it be Mac Jones? And honestly, which ones do the Falcons prefer if you're the defense? How do you scheme up against 2 quarterbacks that seem to be different? But defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich seems to think that these 2 quarterbacks have a lot of similarities.
I think, honestly, they're very similar entities. They're both good quarterbacks. You know, I fortunately have had experience against Mac Jones, playing against him with the Patriots I think we saw him two or three times. And I always left those games very impressed with the quarterback that he is. And he doesn't get enough credit for the athleticism that he has, the mobility that he has. He is, so in my opinion, him and Purdy are very similar players. You know, you got to prepare in very much the same way. And obviously, Kyle's going to feature him in similar ways as well. So not a whole lot there. And then I really believe that the young tight end they have he's an ascending player that, you know, he can catch the ball. He's excellent as a receiver. He can provide some matchup problems, especially if you put him on a linebacker. So, and then McCaffrey's McCaffrey. So they are banged up a bit, but you know, especially with Bourne coming on, it feels like they're at full strength right now from an offensive perspective. And I know they're not completely full strength, but they're going to be a challenge.
All right, so Jeff Ulbrich giving both of the quarterbacks their flowers, and obviously giving the backup tight end, Jake Tonjes, his flowers as well, but obviously we're going to see a little bit more of George Kittle. How much more of an edge does this offense have now having Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle on this offense
I mean,
tonight?
It gives them just another dynamic receiving threat. Like, George Kittle's not just a tight end. Like, he's in that same realm as the Kyle Pitts of the world, the Travis Kelce of the world, the truly, like, hybrid type tight end, right? Like, he's almost a wide receiver, okay? The way that he can get around the field, but the size just creates mismatches for different players on the defense. So he is a challenge that he brings, but we talk about Tonjes. He did a really good job kind of keeping things together, keep bringing that tight end production while George Kittle was out. I mean, 25 catches, 224 yards, and 3 touchdowns. This is a guy that had played in 4 NFL games prior to this stretch where he's had to really step up his level of play. So they've gotten some production out of that position. Again, we talked about so many wide receivers have been out, but I think he's definitely, they get a boost offensively. When you got McCaffrey and you got George Kittle in the game, that's going to make Mac Jones a little bit more comfortable in the passing game.
Yeah, something else to know. I know that we mentioned it earlier. Mac Jones has been sacked 11 times in only 4 games. And something interesting about Jeff Ulbrich is he's mentioned, I know that we've been blitzing a lot. Last week they blitzed Josh Allen 55.9% of the times on his dropbacks. He says, I don't actually want to blitz that much. I would actually just prefer to rush 4 and just do a straight pass rush and get to the quarterback. So this could be an opportunity tonight for that defense to kind of work just rushing 4 and getting to the quarterback, because Mac Jones has been proven to hold on to the ball a little bit longer, and that's what's led to his 11 sacks. So maybe we will see that more tonight in this defensive pass rush. Let's go ahead and get to the keys to the game presented by Wells Fargo. You've got 3 for me tonight. Go ahead with
I got
first.
3. I'm going to start with the first one. And Christian McCaffrey cannot dominate, okay? This has got to be a game. We know how dynamic this player is, but he cannot dominate. You remember the game that Bijan Robinson had last week against the Buffalo Bills? That cannot be the performance that we see from Christian McCaffrey. Now, what I will tell you is that Christian McCaffrey will get his, okay? He is that good of a player. But to me, if it's like a, let's call it 95 total yards and a touchdown, you can live with that, right? But he has got the ability to get 200 yards and 3 touchdowns, and that is not out of his realm at all. So it's got to be minimize the damage that you get from Christian McCaffrey, and that's going to come from execution, that's going to come from game plan and scheme, and that's going to come from all 11 players, because Kyle Shanahan's going to be very creative in how he ends up creating matchups for Christian McCaffrey and how they feel like they can end up attacking this Atlanta defense. So don't let him beat you. Number 2, turnover differential, I think, is a huge one, especially when you go on the road in these national spotlight games. Atlanta's been doing a great job in that department this year. +3 on the season. That's 9th in the National Football League. If they can continue that same theme in this game, it's going to give them a great chance. But if they get off to a couple of turnovers, or they're trying to get back into the game in the second half for whatever reason, because it's tight, you end up throwing an interception, that can derail everything, right? So it's obviously ball security and offense, but how about some takeaways on defense? Let's see some more interceptions, just like we ended up seeing last week. And finally, win the line of scrimmage. A lot of these keys I could tell you each and every week, but winning the line of scrimmage on offense, which means giving Michael Penix time to throw the football, opening up holes for Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, that's offensively. And then defense, as you talked about, maybe it's just rushing 4. Maybe that ends up being the game plan more, but can you win with 4 up front? Can you get in the face of Mac Jones, push him off of his mark, force him to get rid of the football quickly, or maybe it's just you bring pressure, but you win at the line of scrimmage and make things difficult. I think all those were on display last week against Buffalo, and some things just need to carry over week to week.
Yeah, something to mention about that winning the turnover margin. Last week, the San Francisco 49ers had 2 turnovers against Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Both of those turnovers turned into points. Tampa had 10 points on their turnovers. So capitalizing on the turnovers, not just getting them, but getting points on the board from them will be huge for the Falcons tonight. All right, time for my preference, obviously. He texted me last week about my preference, and he liked my preference last week.
Still waiting for the music, right?
And it worked. I said let it fly for Michael Penix, and he did.
Let it
fly. All right, so I know we talked about it earlier in the show, but my preference tonight will be to prove them wrong. Maybe prove me wrong? I don't know.
Who's them?
The national media, I guess, because here's the thing. Everyone has been talking about, wow, maybe the Falcons are a playoff team, but there's always that but with the Falcons, it feels like. But what about week 3? What about that 30-0 loss against the Carolina Panthers last week or in week 3? And a lot of people have noticed that this week in week 7 is very similar to what it was going into week 3. Obviously, you had this big win on his primetime stage against the Vikings, then you go on the road and you play the Carolina Panthers. Same thing here, had the big win on primetime against the Bills, now going across the country to play the San Francisco 49ers. I've talked to a lot of players and they've all said we are a playoff team. I know that we are, we all know that we are, and I think obviously the Commanders, it was a game that the Falcons had to snap back. They had to win that game.
Yep.
And then for the bye week, you had the whole bye to really prepare for the Bills. You had over a week and a half to prepare for the Bills team. Tonight, in my opinion, is the night to prove to the NFL that this team is a force to be reckoned with. We can work on a short week. We can work on primetime games. We can fly across the country and we'll still beat you guys. Doesn't matter. I think that this game is so important for the Falcons, and it will be a game similar to the Panthers, but in a positive light, to circle of this is when everyone started talking about us in a positive way again.
Yeah, hey, things have fared well for them on primetime so far.
Well,
maybe they just got to get out of that 1 o'clock window.
Why would you say that? Knock on wood.
If they're good enough, we shouldn't be able to broadcast or jinx it.
Who is this guy?
Although my partner yesterday did jinx a kicker by saying that. Haven't missed an extra point all year. Guess what happened?
Who?
Missed the extra point.
What kicker?
This was at Clemson SMU game.
Oh, yes. Oh, that wasn't me. I was like, I didn't say anything.
No, it wasn't
yesterday.
you.
I didn't say. I did jinx that kid from the Tennessee game, Georgia game, though. I did jinx him, and it was awesome. One of the better days of the fall. Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us for the Falcons pregame show. We'll be with you next week back in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. It's going to be a fun one. We'll be back on the live at noon next Sunday. We will see you guys then. Thanks for coming back with me. It's been fun.
I enjoyed it.
It's been
Let's do it
fun.
again next week, huh?
Sounds good. Same time. Well, not same time next week. 12 o'clock next week. We'll see you guys then.